Wizard Beano and pals show how they care for the planet. I must tell you how Wizard Beano came into our lives and how he has played a huge part in the life and times of the Fowler family and beyond. Wizard Beano started having adventures over 60 years ago. Right before bedtime, Joseph Sr. would tell his children exciting tales of the wizard's escapades. Wizard Beano still lived in the beautiful cherry tree in the Fowler family's garden. He used to live there alone, but these days he had a friend called Charlie, who also calls the tree home. Since the arrival of Joe Jr., Joe Sr.'s great-grandson, lots has happened in the world of Wizard Beano. You might find it helpful and fun to read the first book of adventures, Wizard Beano and Pals. Then you'll know exactly what's been going on. But in the meantime, get ready for more magical stories. Over the River Tyne. Wizard Beano and Charlie hung on the side of the metro, the train that takes people all over the northeast. With a flash, the darkness of the tunnel they were travelling through vanished into powerful light, and two pals had to blink and squint as the sunshine streamed into their faces. They could see the river down below, and there were bridges and buildings. "This is beautiful," Charlie cried, gazing at the shapes of the bridges. They spotted a silver-curved, shiny building that looked like an armadillo. "Wow!" Wizard Beano was about to reply when a frown crossed his face. All of a sudden, he grabbed hold of Charlie and flew with them into the sky. The wizard was sure he'd heard a cry for help. Along the River Tyne there was a large colony of kittiwakes. They lived amongst the metal girders under the Tyne Bridge. They'd built their nests, and here they bring up their families, and they're wonderful to watch as they soar over the river. 7 bridges, both old and new, span the River Tyne, and the buildings reflect light. They look smooth and silver and magnificent. One bird had just learnt to fly, Keanu the kittiwake, but he'd been finding it very difficult to make his way around the bridges and the buildings, and when Wizard Beano saw him, he was lying in the corner of the rooftop. The building underneath had the word Baltic on it in large letters. The poor little bird had started the day flying happily with his flock, but then he'd hit the side of the Baltic building and landed with a bump. The pain in his wing had made him cry out, and that was the cry that Wizard Beano had heard. You see, the wizard had special powers and knew when animals and children needed his help. When he and Charlie reached the young kittiwake, he was huddled up and didn't look well. His wing was floppy and hung down awkwardly from his body. "It really hurts," Keanu whimpered. He sounded scared, and Wizard Beano and Charlie could see he was in shock. "Where's home?" Charlie said. Keanu nodded towards the green bridge over the river. Muttered Wizard Beano. How was he going to help Keanu get back? "I'll have to have a think." While Charlie sat with the bird, trying to keep him calm, the wizard jumped into the air and hovered there. First things first, he needed to attract the attention of the kittiwakes who were circling above. It was clear they were worried as they dipped and swooped in search for their young friend. Wizard Beano waved at them as he floated in the air, and he pointed to where Charlie and Keanu crouched in the corner of the roof. At least now the other kittiwakes would know he was safe. But that wasn't the end of it. Wizard Beano still had to find a way to get the young bird home. He peered ahead of him, looking from the rooftop to the bridge. "Come on, think, think." That's when he noticed it. A zip line spanned the river all the way to the bridge. The zip line is made of thick metal. People can slide down it and get from the Baltic to the Tyne Bridge. It can feel scary and people aren't used to sliding through the sky. They have to wear a safety harness, but the thrill of zooming across the water makes them feel like they're flying like a bird. Special events are often held so people are allowed to use the zip line. They can be sponsored as a way of raising money for charity, and sliding down the wire is difficult. You need to be brave, so it can be a challenge. As Wizard Beano gazed at the zip line, he had an idea. "Yes, this could work," he said, "but I need something else." In the distance, he noticed a flag wafting in the breeze. It was fixed to the top of the mast of a boat on the river. Wizard Beano rubbed his beard. "Excellent," he said to himself and nodded his head. "That shouldn't be too tricky." Then he whispered, "Abracadabra." As the magic word came out of his mouth, all at once the flag flew from the boat. It sailed through the air and landed right next to Charlie and Keanu. Wizard Beano's eyes sparkled with delight as he whooshed back to the rooftop. "Now," he said, "let's make this little fellow comfortable, shall we?" He and Charlie gently wrapped up Keanu in the flag, making his wing all cosy. Then they made a loop to tie the young bird in, so that the flag would act like a little safety harness. When Wizard Beano was sure Keanu would be held tightly, he called to the two adult kittiwakes. "Keanu needs your help now. I want you to fly down and help us attach this loop to the zip line. Can you do that?" The two birds didn't need to be asked twice. As soon as the loop was firmly fixed, they were off. What a sight! Charlie, Wizard Beano and the two adult kittiwakes zoomed along as they all helped move the injured bird along the zip line. "Whee!" Charlie screeched when they picked up speed. In no time, Keanu was on the other side of the river, nestled in a makeshift harness. At the green bridge, the two adult kittiwakes called, "We can manage from here." Then Wizard Beano and Charlie watched as they carried Keanu the short distance under the bridge back to the colony. The noise of the birds was piercing, and the smell under the bridge was terrible. Charlie and Wizard wrinkled their noses and glanced at each other. Time to go." "Goodbye," squawked the kittiwakes, "and thank you both." "Well, that was exciting," Charlie said. They patted down their ruffled, windswept hair. "I'm glad we don't have to hang about, though. It's really pongs under there." Wizard Beano nodded. "Time to relax now," he said. "Relax," Charlie said, staring at him. "How can you even think about relaxing at a time like this? Look over there." Wizard Beano's eyes followed where Charlie pointed. In the distance there was lots more buildings. "Some of those could be shops," Charlie added. "Shopping!" Wizard Beano couldn't think of anything worse. "Off you go." Then he said, "I'll meet you back here." He looked around for a quiet spot on the riverbank where he could sit and watch the world go by. But Charlie had other ideas. One in, one out, another wizard rule. Wow, shops! Lots of them. This was Charlie's dream. The colours, the lights, the people, the fashion. They gazed through the big windows wide-eyed. Wizard Beano trudged behind them, muttering under his breath, "I need a cup of tea." But Charlie kept walking and gazing. There was so much to choose from, but he couldn't decide what to pick. By the time their day in Newcastle was over, and it was getting dark, all Wizard Beano wanted was dinner and a sit-down. So before Charlie could argue, he transported them both back to the cherry tree home. Before they'd set off on the metro that morning, Wizard Beano had had a little chat with Charlie about shopping. Our home isn't very big, he explained, and it's already rather full with all your things. The cupboard's bursting and you'll never fit anything else in. The smile on Charlie's face had turned upside down and it made them look sad. Do you mean I can't get anything new? Asked Charlie in a soft voice. I don't mean that at all, Wizard Beano had replied. Of course you can get something. When you look through the shop windows, you can pick 3 things you'd like to make a new outfit. But, he went on, if you're going to bring those 3 things home, here's what you must do. You must give 3 items from your cupboard to a charity shop. The wizard explained that charity shops were where people can take their things you no longer want or need and they find them a new home. People looking for a bargain can buy them cheaply there. Money raised is given to the charity. Shops like these often hold hidden treasures, just waiting to be loved all over again, said Wizard Beano. The thought of choosing 3 items to give away had made Charlie's head hurt. But if they did, Wizard Beano had promised they'd go back to Newcastle the next morning so that Charlie could do their shopping, and that sounded like fun. That evening, as they looked at the beautiful clothes, Charlie knew that choosing 3 items to give away would be really difficult. They loved them all, the bright tops, the lines of dungarees and leggings in different colours. There was lots of taking things out of the cupboard, then putting them back again. Finally, with a sad face, Charlie made their decision. Of course, Charlie's clothes were far too tiny to fit even a very small child, but Wizard Beano had promised to use his magic to make the 3 items bigger. He'd also promised to shrink the 3 new items Charlie chose from the shops tomorrow so they would fit them. When Charlie went to bed that night, they couldn't wait for the following morning. For the first time ever, Charlie was up and ready for the day at sunrise. They peeped out of the cherry tree and waved at Foxy on the swing. Then they washed and dressed and pulled out the 3 things for the charity shop, their mind racing with the thoughts of the new outfit, and the excitement was almost too much. Wake up, I've made breakfast, Charlie announced. Wizard Beano opened his eyes with a start. Breakfast, he thought? Without having to ask for it? Well, I never. Although the wizard was usually up and about early each day, he still liked to take his time in the morning. He would do some stretching exercises in bed while thinking through the day's plans. No time for that today, though. Charlie's excitement seemed to mean everything had to be speeded up. Wizard Beano and Charlie flew alongside the metro track on the way back to Newcastle, and this time they all went all the way to the city centre, the Monument metro station. Charlie walked up and down the pavements and gazed at all of the clothes and shoes in the shop windows, with the Monument in the background. Oh, look at those colours and spangles and styles, they cried. The fantastic trainers and the amazing hoodies. Wizard Beano listened to Charlie's gasps of delight as the 2 of them wandered through the shopping malls. The malls were so brightly lit and inviting, but the wizard couldn't really understand Charlie's interest in clothes and fashion. He was just happy in his red coat, black trousers and white shirt. Easy peasy.
and conveniently he was able to use his magic to make sure the outfit was clean and pressed every day. Simple, he thought. I'll never understand why some people want lots of different outfits. Charlie, of course, was the opposite. This was the first chance they'd had to see so many beautiful things in shops. They would be a brilliant addition to the already bulging wardrobe and drawers back at the cherry tree. Charlie held out the 3 items they were giving away, and next Wizard Beano used his magic to make the clothes big enough to fit someone about 8 to 10 years old. Then Charlie left them at the drop-off section of the nearest charity shop. In next to no time, they pointed to the colourful top, jumpsuit and fabulous trainers they'd chosen for their new outfit. Once again, Wizard Beano used his magic. Abracadabra! And this time, the wizard made an exact copy of the items Charlie wanted, but shrank them down so they would fit them. And suddenly, they were in the paper bag next to Charlie's legs. Wizard Beano smiled as he looked at his excited friend. Charlie now understood how important it was to give away clothes or belongings that were no longer needed. By donating them to a charity shop, others had the chance to make use of them. Giving the old away had also made room for the new. Charlie couldn't wait to get home and go to bed, and they wanted morning to come quickly so they could put on their new outfit. Before going to bed himself, Wizard Beano saw that his friend had laid out their new clothes ready for the following day. Nice to see Charlie being organised for once, he thought. And who knows, I might even get breakfast made for me again. Diablo's school trip to 7 stories. Diablo and 29 other pupils stood outside the school gates. They were waiting for the coach to pick them up. You could feel the excitement in the air. The children chattered and stood in huddles, looking for ways to create a little mischief. As soon as the coach came, everyone jostled for position. A group of boys charged on board. They pushed past everyone in their way and ran to get the back seats. The girls tutted, and the little friendship groups all sat as close to each other as they could. Diablo, as usual, was last and had to grab a seat near the front, close to the teachers. He wasn't bothered in the slightest, just happy to be going on the trip. He wore his black coat, and in the deep inside pocket could feel his spell book and new wand, and he also wore his beanie. But he could turn it into his pointy wizard's hat whenever he wanted to. Once they arrived at 7 stories, the children got off the coach and split into small groups. The plan was to see as much as possible. There was lots of activities going on, as well as a visit from a local author, and the author was signing copies of their book, which included a story about a boy who liked magic. Brilliant! Diablo had already asked his mum and dad if they could order the book for him before the trip. Then he'd be able to get it signed by the author at 7 stories. His parents were delighted that he'd asked for a book. As Diablo followed the other children in his group, he started to feel frustrated. They'd stopped for lunch and spent a little time with the author, and they were missing the book reading because there was so much else to cram into the visit. The book's the most important bit, Diablo thought. I really wanted to know what happens in the story about the boy who liked magic. Diablo noticed a big, solid door on the landing. When no one was looking, he pulled it open. It was heavy.
but he managed to open it enough to slide through. To his surprise, he found himself in an accessible toilet. There was a lock on the door and lots of room inside. Accessible toilets need to be roomy so that people who use wheelchairs have plenty of space and can get in and out easily. Great, Diablo thought. He locked the door and gave his hands a good wash. Then he took out his new book, sat on the floor and began to read. He was concentrating so hard on the story that he didn't hear his classmates trooping past along the landing, heading for the exit. Diablo didn't know, but the coach was parked outside the building, ready to take the children back to school again. So he just carried on reading. A short time later, he realised he must have been in the toilet for a while. So he put his book in his pocket and went to open the door. Oh no! The door felt even heavier from this side and the lock was stiff. No matter how he tried, Diablo couldn't get it open. He started to panic. Meanwhile, outside 7 Stories, the teachers were counting the children. Diablo's classmates clambered up the steps to the coach and ran to get the best seats. Only then did the teacher, who'd been sitting in front of Diablo on the way, then realise that Diablo wasn't with them. The teacher called out his name, Diablo! No answer. And none of the other children had seen him leaving the building. In Wizard Beano's cherry tree, the wizard was just having his afternoon rest. But he felt uneasy. Something wasn't quite right. He closed his eyes and inside his head he could see that someone was stuck in what seemed like a cupboard. Then the feeling he got when his help was needed came over him like a wave. Back at 7 Stories, the staff had been told that one of the children were missing. They stood in the foyer keeping an eye out for him and made sure that the front door was closed. To Diablo, the toilet now seemed a scary place. Trapped inside, he felt as if the walls were closing in. He knew that this was the only way out. He'd have to use a bit of magic. Taking a deep breath, Diablo turned his beanie inside out so the pointed wizard hat stood tall. Then he pulled the wand out of his deep coat pocket. He needed a spell to work and gave him a get-out before the teachers got cross with him. Closing his eyes, he tapped the wand on the door. Let the door that I clout let me out. He whispered the magic words and rattled the handle. Nothing budged. He tried again. Still nothing. Diablo thought he might cry. I don't think my magic is strong enough. Then he remembered something important. Wizard Beano had taught him to concentrate hard when he used a spell. The wizard had also said that it was important to eat regularly because it helps us focus. That's it, Diablo cried. I didn't finish my lunch. I must be hungry. In another pocket he had a flapjack. Pulled it out and ate it. This should give me the energy I need, he thought. Now it was time to try the spell again. Let the door that I clout let me out. This time Diablo didn't speak in a whisper. This time his voice was clear and firm. As he spoke, he tapped the wand on the door handle and suddenly the lock clicked and the door opened wide. Diablo raced to the foyer. Sorry, everyone, he said. I was using the bathroom and I got a bit stuck. He looked outside through the glass front of the door and it was just in time to see Wizard Beano land on the pavement. Diablo's eyes opened in surprise, but he quickly mouthed, I did it.
to the wizard. Then he added, "Because I remembered to eat." Wizard Beano smiled and gave him the thumbs up. "I wish everybody listened to my advice," he mouthed back. Diablo had finally understood that having regular meals and regular drinks made it easier to stay focused and awake. His magic was improving too, thanks to Wizard Beano's support. We all need help sometimes. The Whitley Bay Rescue. Charlie and Wizard Beano were very interested to explore more of the northeast. They had a look at the metro map and chose some of the stops to visit. Even though Charlie loved shopping, the beach was also a favourite place of theirs. So one day the two pals jumped on the metro and headed towards the coast. As they approached Monk's Eaton metro stop, Wizard Beano's ears pricked up. He could hear sobbing coming from somewhere a little way off. Charlie, of course, couldn't hear anything other than the clanking of the metro and the chatting of the passengers. So when Wizard Beano caught their hand and whooshed up and away with them, they were very surprised. They flew all the way to the beach, and the nearer they got, the louder the sobs grew in Wizard Beano's ears. At last Charlie could hear the crying too, and a little voice that whimpered, "I only went out for a short walk, and now I can't get back in my house." The wizard landed himself and Charlie on a huge stone next to a rock pool. There they saw who it was that was so upset. A sad-looking hermit crab called Herbert. As the tide had gone out, he'd left his shell house for a while and gone for a stroll. He liked being among the rocks, sand, seaweed and pools of water he called home. But now he was shut out of his house. Some plastic litter had got stuck in the opening. It must have been washed in by the sea or blown in by the breeze. He couldn't shift it. Herbert felt embarrassed to be seen without his shell. He was also scared without its protection around him. This had never happened before. All the sea creatures had been noticing more and more rubbish on the beach and in the water, but until now Herbert had only ever found a bottle top or a bit of sea glass in his shell. He'd been able to pull those out, but this plastic just wouldn't move. Wizard Beano gave Herbert a kindly smile. "Don't worry, little crab," he said. "Let's see if we can get you back into your house." Charlie found a bucket with a broken handle that had been left on the beach. "This is perfect," they said. "We can put the rubbish from the shell into it, and then we can find a recycling bin for it." The last thing Charlie wanted to do was to put the plastic back into the sea. There was far too much of it already, and it was dangerous to the fish and other creatures. When the two of them had pulled all the rubbish from Herbert's shell, the hermit crab was able to crawl back inside. "Thank you so much," Herbert said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Charlie grinned. "We're just glad we could help. Besides, we love making new friends." When Herbert was safely back in his shell house, Wizard Beano and Charlie went to explore the promenade. They had noticed that there were litter and recycling bins there. These were meant to encourage people not to leave their rubbish on the beach. But although children seemed to use them, some of the grown-ups didn't. One man dropped his ice lolly wrapper onto the pavement right in front of them. Charlie could hardly believe their eyes. "That's not right," they yelled, jumping up and down in anger and frustration. Abracadabra. Wizard Beano smiled to himself as he whispered. Instantly, the lolly wrapper flew upwards and stuck fast to the man's hand. However, much he shook his hand and pulled at the wrapper, it wouldn't budge. His daughter had to tell him to walk towards the nearest litter bin and hold his hand over the opening. Only then did the wrapper drop off and get caught tidily in the bin. Red-faced and looking awkward, the man hurried off head down. "He won't drop rubbish in a hurry," said Wizard Beano with a chuckle. Charlie giggled. It was marvellous having a magical friend. Trouble in Timemouth. One bright sunny morning, Wizard Beano and Charlie took a stroll along the beach at Timemouth. A breeze blew in their faces and their feet made tiny prints in the long stretch of pale sand. All of a sudden, Charlie squinted into the sunshine and pointed to something. "What's that? It looks like a log." Wizard Beano appeared too. "Ha," he said, "that's a baby seal. It's probably come up onto the beach for a rest. The sea's a bit choppy today." He glanced out towards the white-topped waves. "I should think its mum's out there swimming and catching fish for both of them." The wizard and Charlie moved closer to get a better look, but as they did so, they spotted two dogs in the distance. The dogs weren't on leads and they were running straight towards the seal. The pals were near enough to the baby seal to see the fear in its eyes. It didn't seem to know what to do. Should it try to get back in the sea or keep completely still and hope the dogs wouldn't notice it? Wizard Beano hardly had time to think. A group of children were playing right beside them. Instantly he flew up and landed on one boy's shoulder. "Hurry," he whispered into the boy's ear. "That baby seal over there needs your help. It's frightened of the dogs. You and your friends need to protect it." The boy wasn't sure where the voice had come from, but that didn't matter. "Follow me," he called to his friends, and all 7 of the children scampered off towards the seal. Wizard Beano, holding Charlie by the hand, flew over to it and got there first. Poor baby seal looked more scared than ever. "It's all right," said Charlie. "We're not going to hurt you." They pointed to the children. "These children will keep you safe from the dogs." Hardly had they finished speaking when the 7 children reached them. They grabbed hold of each other's hands and formed a ring around the seal. It was important that they keep an eye on the dogs, so they made sure to face outwards. 2 more children raced to the pathway leading onto the beach. "You need to keep your dogs on leads, please," they said to the grown-ups there. Then they pointed towards the ring of children and the greyish-brown fluffy fur ball that they could see through their legs. Soon the 2 dogs who'd been running free had been caught by their owner. Their leads had snapped onto their harnesses, and seeing the seal was safe, the children went back to their games. "There now," said Wizard Beano, "and you can go back to the sea when you've finished having your rest." "Thank you for saving me," said the seal. "My name's Susie. I hope I'll see you both again one day." Charlie beamed. "You will. We'll love being by the sea." Later that morning, the wizard and Charlie sat on the banks below the ancient priory. As Charlie gazed over the water, they said, "Can we do more exploring? How do we get over to the other side of the river?" "The easiest way is to fly, obviously," Wizard Beano replied.
But look, that boat over there is the Shields Ferry. It carries people from one side of the River Tyne to the other. And travelling by boat is great fun, so let's cross that way. Just then, the yummy smell of fish and chips wafted past their noses. The wizard took a long sniff. Yes, he added, we'll cross on the ferry just as soon as we've had some lunch.